Welcome to the Wounded Angels Network, where today we're going to talk about psychological complexes. We often hear people saying, so-and-so's got a real this complex or that complex. You have a mother complex, a father complex. There's even a Madonna whore complex. But what exactly is a psychological complex? The easiest way into talking about it is to ask if you can remember, and I'm sure most of us do know these moments in life, when some set of circumstances just brings out the absolute worst in us. You feel that the situation is getting on top of you. Often you begin to feel out of yourself, and sometimes it comes out as absolute rage. Sometimes you feel frozen and trapped. And often people around you are shocked by your behavior because you behave completely out of character. You might be violent, you might rage, as I say, you might just freeze, you might run away and want to just get the hell out of that situation. And afterwards, when you replay what happened, you say to yourself, I don't know what came over me. I was having a meltdown. We often talk about, I think I lost it, because we really feel that confused. The chances are in moments like that we are what is called in the grip of a psychological complex. Now in the East, in Buddhism, they reference this also in a similar way. They speak about Kalesha's mind poisons, that one can be in the grip of these mind poisons or these complexes, and that's a good way of describing it. A complex is a completely unconscious reality, and if you can think of it as a set of energies that have come together, that have constellated around associations or fantasies or unmet expectations or negative behavior that we've experienced. Over time, these experiences constellate, they gather together into a complex. And it's interesting that when Jung first began his work, Carl Jung, who informs a lot of my work, when he first began as a psychiatrist to explore this realm of the unconscious, he thought that he might call what is today called psychotherapy or analytical therapy or depth psychology, Jungian psychology. He wanted to call it complex psychology because he discovered that the complexes were really such powerful energies. It's bad experiences that we have long and old memories of. Some of them going right back, perhaps even prenatally. Maybe even memories of our ancestors. We don't really know, but there's this constellation of tight energy in a complex. And the best analogy that I can come up with is that of a landmine. A landmine is a terrible thing. It is basically a bomb that is activated, and it lies there buried underground with all this power, just waiting for a vehicle to ride over it, or even worse, for somebody, an anti-personnel mine, just somebody to step on it. And then all the energy that is pent up in that explosion, those explosives, just erupts. And we know that the devastation that is caused just to the north of South Africa, where I'm speaking to you from, Mozambique, is still suffering after years and years and years of guerrilla warfare to get the mines lifted. They lie there, they injure cattle, they injure children who play in the fields. Similar situations happen in Cambodia, in Vietnam, in Thailand, wherever there have been armed conflicts and landmines have been left. Now, in the unconscious, you could think of these complexes as energetic, emotional landmines. We don't always know what triggers them. So we might know that we have a complex, but we don't always know what sets them off? What is it that steps on the button and causes the great explosion? So one could have a father complex, where you might have grown up as a child being severely criticized by your father, humiliated by your father, mocked by your father, and put down. And so whenever one finds yourself in an embarrassing situation as an adult, the complex is activated, and one then reverts back to being that little child again. And so the father complex, it then creates in you this inner child, and your behavior is completely out of sorts. You're not behaving like an adult, you're not rational, you completely regress while you are in the grip of the complex. And as one begins to explore one's own psychological makeup, one's own unconscious motivations, you realize that not only may I have a complex, but the complex also has me. The complex, because it's so energetic and so powerful, whenever I step on it, boom, I'm in its grip. And in the Buddhist teachings, where they talk about the mind poison, when you're in the grip of a mind poison or a klesha, a mind state, similar to what we would call a complex, the advice of the Buddhists is don't try and do anything. You're not going to be able to stop it. Just let it blow itself out. And so that is what one does with complexes. You're in the grip of it, you let it blow itself out. Of course, it's helpful. And this is the process of individuation, of getting to know yourself, getting to understand your own shadow, your unconscious motivations. Well, as one begins to work with complexes and to understand them, they don't go away. You are never cured of your complexes. They are, in fact, an integral part of us that give us the compost, if you will, to work with. The struggle of our life, the flaws in us that can eventually be filled with gold. In the kintsugi model of the Japanese artist who puts gold into the cracks of the broken vessel. Our complexes are always going to be with us. What we can begin to understand is what triggers them. We begin to make a map of the unconscious landscape of our own lives. Kind of like those old seafarers who used to go out on the voyages of discovery, terrible fears for them. They thought the world was flat. They always worried that they were going to fall off the edge. And if they got to dangerous territory where they found currents or situations where they weren't going to sail, on the map, they would normally draw some big sea serpent, and they'd make a note saying, "Here be dragons. Here be dragons. Don't go there." And complexes on our psychological maps are those notations on our cartography, which says, "Here be dragons. Be careful. Take care." The trigger events that bring out the dragon energy, that make the landmine explode, are often situations that echo what happened to us in our childhood. So if one has an abandonment complex, when you feel that people are not taking you seriously, are not listening to you, are discounting you, suddenly the abandonment complex will have you in its grip, and all those fears and all those experiences of abandonment in your childhood will be back. Similarly with humiliation, if somebody embarrasses you or you embarrass yourself, boom, you're back in the trauma, and all the energy from all those bad experiences right back happening to you now. You're in the grip of the complex. So important at moments like that, as you sense that you're getting close to being triggered, what one can do is say, you know what, this isn't actually the same. I'm not that little child anymore. The feelings might arise, but you can, if you get to know the landscape well enough, and if you've got a good enough map and you're prepared to do the work, you can actually say, you know what, I'm falling into the complex. Let me take myself out of this environment. Here be dragons. Let me sail out of dragon water. Or let me get away from the landmine, that minefield. Let me put flags in and say, here are landmines. Let me get out of here. And often that can limit the power. We don't actually trigger the complex. I find that echo thing, that it sounds and seems like it did when the complex was first formed. It's not the same. The echo that comes back from the cliff is not actually the word that was spoken. It's just the bounce back, the echo over time of whatever was shouted at the cliff that is now coming back. It's not the actual thing. It's just a reflection. So the echo factor is useful. And another very simple way to avoid being triggered is that good old mnemonic that comes from Alcoholics Anonymous. They use it to warn alcoholics, addicts, people in recovery. They use this mnemonic to guard against what they call slippery places, times when you're going to relapse back into your addictive behavior. And the mnemonic they use is the word halts. Halts. H-A-L-T-S-S. Halts, double S. Halts. Stop. What does HALT stand for? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, sick, or stressed. Halts. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, sick, or stressed. Those are slippery places for the alcoholic. They are also possible trigger areas where we are sailing into dragon waters. Just be careful when you're hungry or angry or lonely or tired or sick or stressed. You are vulnerable. You could find your complexes being triggered. What does one do with this? Well, it's a wonderful opportunity to welcome yourself to the human race. We all have complexes. They are part of our makeup. Are they good? No. They are part of who we are. We can learn to understand them. We can learn what triggers them. But most of all, we can learn to love ourselves with the complexes. There's a lovely comment by Carl Jung where he's reflecting on Jesus's instruction to the disciples, which Jesus taught them and said, love your enemies. And Jung reflects on that and says, but what if I should discover that the enemy himself is within me, that I am the enemy who must be loved? What then? Well, the answer is love yourself. Love your complex self. And even though you might seem like an enemy to yourself sometimes that is self-defeating and destructive to your own purposes, the invitation is to love that enemy and to know that the complexes are part of who you are and also part of how you can come to love yourself. Thank you for your time and attention.